Today, there will be a ball in the palace. Cinderella miraculously managed to get there thanks to the fairy tale fairy, but even happy moments came to an end, and Cinderella left the palace as soon as the clock struck midnight. In the minutes of her escape, she dropped her slipper. The prince picked her up to return her someday, because he could not forget this beautiful girl, and thus simply created the opportunity to see her again. And then the prince, longing for the stranger who had stolen his heart, set off on a journey full of hopes and forebodings. After a long search, he finally found the owner of the crystal slipper, and then Cinderella married the prince and her happy days began. Only, according to the fairy tale fairy, the girl did not look like a happy wife at all. She was alone in a locked and cold room, shed tears every night, and at some point the prince stopped looking for her altogether. He brought her as property and locked her in the castle, like Cinderella with some secret, and he himself did not waste time. The lady saw him from the window almost every day with some new mistress. She could only watch because she could do nothing else. The girl looks more like a bird in a cage because she failed to give birth to an heir to the prince. And after that, he seemed to have forgotten about her. 10 years have passed, nothing has changed during this time. She is still locked up and no longer even dreams of freedom because she has lost the meaning of this life. All this time, while she was here, a little mouse lived with her. Even she felt sorry for Cinderella, whose life was ruined because of one mistake. After so many years, this cute animal has aged. She can no longer run and jump as before, not to mention standing on 2 legs. She already understands that she doesn't have much time left. So while there is still time, she decided to do something good for the last time. She came to the fairy with a request, or rather, with her last wish, which she had not yet used, and asked that the girl become happy again, like when she got married, only that it would not last just a little while, but would continue with her all her life. The fairy asked to think carefully before making such a wish at the end of your life. After all, you can use this opportunity for yourself. The mouse has already decided everything for itself. It has no doubt that this is the right decision, especially since it has nothing to lose. If this girl is happy for the rest of her days, the sweet creature who became friends with her will leave this world with a peaceful soul. She saw a smile on the girl's face only once, but even then, it faded very quickly. Probably, if it weren't for that little kind mouse, Cinderella would never have had a single chance to get out of there and start life anew. Meanwhile, she feels that she has very little time left. Her wish has been heard, and her soul has begun to escape from her body with every second. The fairy felt cold on her hand, which meant that this was their last conversation, which did not last long. Finally, the fairy prayed for the animal to go to heaven. After all, it deserved it. Meanwhile, the mouse sees nothing, but hears pleasant sounds. These are birds singing. And when she heard a very familiar children's song sung by a person with a familiar voice, she thought that heaven was really not bad. It was not for nothing that she was afraid of the moment of heaven. After all, after that, she only began to feel better. If only she knew that everything was a little different from what she thought. At that moment, someone from the corridor called Sylvia very loudly, and Molly realized that something was wrong here. The mouse fell from the flower and began to think where it was, what was happening, and why all these voices around were too familiar. Very unexpectedly for herself, she realizes that these are the same terrible voices of Sylvia's sisters who are constantly dissatisfied with something. It was still unclear to her what they were doing here, but she quickly forgot about it when she felt someone touching her. Molly didn't look closely and, surprisingly, didn't notice that Sylvia was playing with her, although she shouldn't have been there. She just saw her face. The girl ran to ask what they didn't like anymore. She replied that if they called her names again for nothing, then next time she would simply ignore them, or would also call someone else for fun. Molly is confused as to what Sylvia is doing here. She made a wish for the girl to live happily ever after and ended up in heaven with her, although maybe something else happened. Right after that, she thought that it probably didn't matter what happened. The main thing was that the girl wasn't locked up. When she ran to her sisters, Molly quietly ran after her. Apparently, she missed her. And then that she can run and be as active as many years ago. It turns out that there is a tea party going on in the next room. Her sisters and their friends have gathered there, who are very impatient and want their every request to be fulfilled in a second or even faster than they think about it. It didn't end there. They started picking on her appearance, although they themselves don't give her the opportunity to look the same as them. Like any other girl, if she had the opportunity, she would look much better. But she does not even have the basic time to wash her hair, not to mention any procedures in beauty salons. On the one hand, Sylvia seems to be free, but at the same time, this is not at all how Molly imagined the girl's life after her wish. Everything happened in a strange way, but be that as it may, she is grateful to the Holy Fairy for this, because it turns out that now she at least has the opportunity to help the lady, so that she could finally step into her new life and stop serving everyone, and then hear that everyone in this house would be better off without her. As soon as the girl was free, in half an hour the family had another meeting, and as usual, no one invited her to join. She was like service personnel to them. Count Bluewood is Sylvia's biological father, but this man has never stood up for her. He is a terrible father whom she perceives as a stranger. After Cinderella married the prince, unlike her punished stepmother and stepsisters, the man clung to his glory and paid for all his sins. Sylvia lived well and ate well, thanks to the budget allocated by the prince. If it weren't for the prince, she wouldn't have received a penny from her father and would have suffered from hunger, and they would have looked at her with mockery and said that she deserved it. The sisters started laughing at her, and instead of asking why she wasn't smiling at them, Sylvia just started answering them. The father interrupted and said that she should not contradict her sisters, and also wondered why he had 2 successful children and a 3rd unsuccessful one. Naturally, those 2 laughed about it. They were very pleased to hear that, but how Sylvia felt at that moment, no one cared. These are the people who should be her greatest supporters, who should love her. But it turns out that they are her biggest enemies. There is probably no one in this world who would wish her harm more than them. Molly puts herself in her place. She feels so sorry for the girl that if she could, she would answer these people instead of her, and put them in their place. At first, this thought only flashed through her mind, but when Sylvia began to apologize to these people, Molly could no longer stand it. She thought that if she was given a chance to live all those years again, then she should correct her mistakes and do what she was afraid to do then. While no one was looking at her, she ran across the table and started heading straight towards this family that was getting away with too much. The main thing is that she doesn't regret it later, after all. It doesn't cost them anything to get rid of her. For example, throw her out on the street, but while there is an opportunity, she uses it to the maximum. She jumped on the head of the family and began to bite his nose with all her might, so much so that he could not even resist. As it turned out, they are all very afraid of small animals. For them, they are very disgusting, which means that the revenge was successful. Now, the main thing is to quickly hide somewhere so that she doesn't get caught. But for some reason, Molly is in no hurry. She tries to bite him as long as possible wherever she can. The father is so timid that he can't even touch her with his hands. His wife called for help and ordered them to immediately remove the mouse from her husband's face, and also began to threaten that if they did not do this, they would be fired. And then Sylvia realizes that they can harm the mouse, so she stops them and says that she will do everything herself. She said that she had dealt with these animals before and knew how to lure them better, but in reality the girl just wanted to take her and let her go so that she could hide. No one listened to her. This man grabbed her hand and pushed her aside, saying, "Don't interfere here." Molly was surprised that no one was afraid to approach her and realized that there was almost no time left. Suddenly, one of the assistants mercilessly grabbed her in his fist and immediately after that threw her on the floor as if she were some kind of tennis ball. It was terribly cruel of him. It's like he doesn't understand that she's a living being who can be in pain. The girl saw it from the side, imagined how much pain Molly was in, and didn't notice how she escaped from the hands of this villain. She approached the animal and started talking about how cruel they all are. "I wish everyone could experience what just happened to the mouse." She is very worried that Molly will stay alive because she is the only creature in this world that treats her well. She still can't believe that people are capable of such things. If she hadn't told them anything, they wouldn't have even thought about what happened. For them, the life of a small animal is something meaningless, and also the father ordered her to calm down because he might be seriously offended for the fact that she is defending this rat that just attacked him. She would have liked to say that it would have been better if it had been some wild animal that attacked him rather than a mouse. But Sylvia remained silent. The woman can't stand anyone making her husband angry. She quietly approached and started grabbing the girl by the hair. And then she pulled them so hard that Sylvia already thought that she would be left without hair. But it just seemed to her. The woman wants to say that if someone in this house seriously considers rats to be normal animals, then there is no place for a human here and no place for a rat either. Now you can clearly see how they treat their 3rd child, who objectively tries harder than the others. It's a pity that no one has noticed this yet. No matter what she does, she only increases their hatred towards her. The sisters saw the situation from the outside. They understand that this time their parents are too cruel, but they kept silent and only asked their father how he feels. Meanwhile, the woman threw her daughter into some strange room, ordered her to stay here and think about her behavior. After a while, she will come and think whether to let her out of here or not. Then she didn't even listen to her. Calmly went about her business, without any remorse that her daughter remained in this dark and cold place. She screams, begs to be let out of here, is ready to apologize to them, but they like it when she's under their control, so it is unlikely that anyone will return to her. And she also has a small mouse in her hands that can barely move. She feels very bad, and there is not even water or a soft place for her to lie down in the room, and without medication she will hardly be able to recover. She is in a very serious condition. After all, the force of the blow was not weak. She felt very sad that she couldn't help not only herself, she couldn't even help this little defenseless animal. Molly hears her criticizing herself, but she can't say that the girl doesn't blame herself after all. She was the one who ran out without thinking. Meanwhile, they began to remember how they had been in the same situation before, tried to support each other, even though they understood that things would never get better. They had different situations, but together it was much easier for the two of them. Molly just had to run around the room, and Sylvia saw the cuteness in it and always smiled. The most offensive thing is that they are both in such a situation that even if they want to help each other, they do not have enough opportunities and resources. They are nobodies in this house, literally on the same level. But even under such circumstances, they both manage to be happy, being next to each other. Meanwhile, being in a barely normal state, Molly wondered why the fairy tale fairy decided to simply return her and Sylvia to the past, because she was ready to die, asking only for happiness for the girl. Once the lady had calmed down a bit and accepted that they were going to be here for a long time, she decided to talk to her and said that she was very grateful to Molly for everything she had done for her. Without her, it would be terribly unbearable for her. And she also really wants to praise her for her courage, because she always dreamed of seeing her father in pain. It turns out that when she bit his nose, she was protecting her friend, and it was very sweet and nice, although she felt a little strange. The girl even envies her courage. She would never do that, even if she were in the body of a little mouse, which they probably saw for the first time. Next to Molly, the girl feels so good as with no one else. She feels a kindred spirit in her, as strange as it may sound. And what she doesn't understand is how you can call such a cute animal something like pathetic rat, dirty creature, and other similar things. Sylvia sees in her a very kind soul who is ready to do anything for her friend, at least as much as her capabilities allow. And the mouse, for her part, almost burst into tears from such pleasant words, although her owner thinks that she does not understand her. In fact, Molly hears and understands everything. Meanwhile, the head of the family has already called a doctor, who should arrive any minute, but he is not yet visible or heard. He is worried that he might have caught some kind of virus. He already thinks that something is wrong with him, and then he hears some strange sound, gets distracted, and then a second later there was such a strong explosion that he forgot that anything was bothering him. He flew away from her and then came back to see what happened. And there was something there that he couldn't even believe his eyes at first. His beloved garden is now in such a state as if a volcano had erupted right in the center. Everything is covered in earth, in dust, that it is no longer a colorful place, but an incomprehensible thing. The man wonders what kind of brave person could do this to his garden, to which he devoted a lot of time and, importantly, money. Then he saw the silhouette of two people. Then he looked closer and was afraid to say what he was going to do with the one who did this. These two approached the entrance with such an expression on their faces, as if in a couple of minutes they will do the same to this house. At that very moment, an assistant bursts into his office and reports that Duke Valkyrie and the young master were spotted on the premises, but the gentleman already knows everything. Now he wants to know the answer to just one question. What's going on here, and why these two broke into his territory so easily? Meanwhile, one of them warns that the Count has about 9 minutes to return the kidnapped child, who is half human, half beast. The man doesn't quite understand what they're talking about. He barely has the strength to restrain himself from telling them everything he thinks about them. He asks how, after they destroyed his garden, they dare to accuse him of something incomprehensible, and he still turns a blind eye to the fact that they broke in here without permission. In that case, they decided to show him evidence, after which he would no longer have any questions. They showed him this artifact, which tracks the location of the only daughter of the Ratson clan, the beast-like field mice. Until now, young Lady Ratson was considered missing due to a curse, and her whereabouts were unknown, but recently, the artifact suddenly activated and pointed out her location. So they are here to peacefully take her to them. And they also warned that they were not going to prove anything for long. They came for the girl and would leave with her in any case. Edmund wants to suggest some peaceful agreement, but his senior partner doesn't even want to waste time on it. He just said that if anyone continues to be stubborn, they will have to use force, and they can do that. He simply confronted the head of the family with the fact and gave him literally a couple of minutes to think and give his answer. In doing so, they launched an explosive magic that can work immediately as soon as they hear a negative answer. At that moment, the Count began to wonder if they were telling the truth, and there really was someone in his house about whom he knew almost nothing. He began to remember how his daughter had treated the mouse with care, even though it seemed unremarkable. He paid so little attention to her that now he even wanted to look at her. But this is already very unfair. It turns out that if she were an ordinary mouse, he would never have changed his attitude towards her. But as soon as he was told that she was special, he immediately became interested in her. In the meantime, he tried to make them understand that this was probably some kind of misunderstanding, because if there was something in his house that they were talking about, he would definitely know it. He also says that as they can see, this estate is kept in perfect order and even an ordinary rat cannot get through here. Immediately after this, he whispered to his assistant where the dirty rat was that had damaged his garden. The guy replied that he saw Sylvia holding her in her arms and trying to help her after she was thrown to the floor. And he also realized that every time he looked at the lady, she held this mouse in her hands and took care of it as much as she could. So most likely, they are somewhere together now too. The master ordered him to immediately check if she was alive because if not, they were about to have huge problems. And then he thought that it would be better to get rid of it altogether. It seems to him that if they don't have a rat, then there won't be any problems. Just before he leaves, the assistant asks to explain why they should be so afraid of these people, to which the game replied that the Duke of Valkyrie is simply called the King of Beasts, and even if they have a peace treaty, these people still can't be seen. For them, the agreement means nothing. It is also important to note that the House of the Valkyries is the only one who maintains connections with these beast men of the border. If they came here because of one beast man, then this is not an ordinary man. The Count's biggest fear is that if these people find out how they treat Sylvia and Molly, they'll all be finished. So now they'll try to cover up all traces. It turns out that Molly herself doesn't know that she can do this. The thing is that when there are those in the nearest radius who know more about her than others, she can teleport into a person. But at the same time, she still has the features of a mouse that cannot be hidden. Sylvia was scared at first, but then she realized that Molly wouldn't hurt her anyway, and would probably explain everything herself now. Before that, she hugged her very tightly, as if she herself was waiting for the moment when she would turn into a human. The girl asked how she felt, because at least they could talk, and she had completely forgotten that they had never communicated like this before, and she didn't even feel any embarrassment. She hugs her and talks to her as if this happens every day, and not for the first time in as many years as they have known each other. Since Molly doesn't know why she became human, it scares her a lot. She's afraid that someone will see her like this, and everything will only get worse. She begins to examine her body. After all, she had been a mouse all her life, and there was nothing human about her. And then this. Sylvia began to calm her down. She says that in the books it was said that ordinary mice cannot turn into people, but those who are half human, half animal, they have this ability. Their peculiarity is that even when they are in a human body, they still have some features that reveal their true essence. The girl tries to explain that this is a rare case and that they should be proud. But of course, everything would be much better if they could get out to freedom. They won't be allowed to live in peace in this house. The Count already disliked the rat, as he called her, and now when he sees her in human form, he will only hate her even more. Molly says she has a really bad feeling. She knows that man very well. He's just going to make her life hell. At that moment, the girl realized something. If Molly had a human mind, she lived like a mouse. She must have had to go through terrible things that are very hard to imagine and not even very desirable. The fact that she retained her sanity is already a miracle, so all that remains is to support her. Sylvia even said that if they get out of here, they can try to do what can be done in human form. She promised to always be there for her because she understands very well how important it is for her now. She would also be very keen to have someone there if she were in her place. It was such a beautiful moment, but as usual, these people know how to ruin everything. They opened the door and started screaming as if they were about to be attacked. Sylvia has already imagined how she will fight them off because she no longer knows what could have made them come here. Usually, no matter how hard she tried, she never managed to defend herself, but now she has no choice. She must protect herself and Molly at any cost. She tries to cover the girl with herself, but when she heard that they came to get rid of them, her legs began to tremble. Because in this situation, there can only be two outcomes. Either the two of them somehow miraculously defend themselves or escape from here, or from this day on, their life becomes a real hell if they manage to survive at all. She thought about it and decided to sacrifice herself for Molly, asked her to run away from here, and she would stop them with herself and buy time. Molly listened to her. She quietly turned into a mouse and began to look for a gorge where she could hide at least for a while. Then she regretted leaving Sylvia. And then she decided that if it worked out, she would definitely come back to help her. These people can't be stopped. They couldn't think of anything better than breaking down the wall, but they could have just gone around it from the other side. The girl is already so worried about her that she started crying and even managed to resign herself for a second to the fact that they would be able to catch her. Only they all underestimate Molly a little. She is not going to give up so easily and will definitely save her friend who gave her the opportunity to escape. It's very interesting what she came up with because so far you can see that the mouse is definitely not going to sit still. It was very risky, but to distract these people, Sylvia said that if they did not stop right now, they would deal with her. Although it sounded a little funny, no one even had time to answer her. Because at that moment, someone appeared in the room, in front of whom no one would dare to say that immediately destroy this mouse. The guy asks what's going on here because it looks like they're fighting a wall, but he has no idea what's really going on here. Sylvia was immediately happy, because if this man is here, it means that in his presence no one will behave so boldly and even more so, carry out the Count's order. She has no choice. The girl tells this guy that he has to help because these people are trying to destroy her friend. Molly hears everything at this moment. She is very grateful to her and hopes that everything will end very quickly and safely for both of them. I'm very curious how the guy will react to this. After all, he came for Molly and he shouldn't care about these words. And the Count's assistant understands that he has no choice. He must come up with something. Otherwise, they will all have problems. He grabs the girl by the hand, indignant. How dare she talk at all when no one allowed her to do so? He is hiding behind the fact that he is allegedly very impolitely making such a scene in front of the heir of the great Valkyrie family, and also called her a dirty maid who should know her place and only talk when she is allowed to. Since this is her last chance to change something in her life, the girl did not remain silent. She said loudly that her name is Sylvia Bluewood, and that she is the youngest daughter of this house, who is treated like a nobody and is not even allowed to sit with the family at the dinner table. She said that if he was interested, she could tell him everything in detail, but he should have understood everything anyway, and she was glad that she did it. The Count's assistant laughed at her words and said that no one here would believe her, and that it would be better if she just kept quiet. At this moment, the young duke comes up to them and defends the girl because he can't watch some assistant grab his mistress by the hand like that, with great disrespect. The assistant started saying that he would immediately remove this girl from here, and they would calmly discuss everything with him. And the guy asked what was unclear about the girl's words when she ordered him to let go of her hand, and also looked at him with such a look as if he didn't let go of her right now, he would regret it very much. In the end, he helped her, and after that, he admitted that for some reason he had never heard her name before. And then he realized that it was probably because her father wanted it that way. He probably did everything possible to ensure that his third daughter remained unknown to anyone, because that's what suits him. Strangely, the girl never thought about it. It sounded very offensive to her, although all the servants in this house know that her father specifically talks only about his two daughters, and not a word about the third. In the end, she said that everything was fine. She still just needed him to help save her friend who was hiding in the wall. And as soon as she said that there was an unusual mouse hiding there, that guy immediately understood her. And the assistant got angry because he understood that he was finished. If it became known now that he had just tried to get rid of a mouse, he would definitely be in trouble. Just in case, he used his magic ball to make sure he understood her correctly and that Molly was really here. Sylvia finally felt at peace because if they found Molly, her friend would definitely make sure to take her away from here too. She definitely won't leave her here, so everything depends on what happens next. The guy is very happy that he is close to Molly. It's just weird that he stands still and does nothing. Meanwhile, finally, he begins to approach the place where the mouse is hiding and the assistant's legs are already shaking. Because as soon as Molly ends up in the hands of these people, he can be considered to have lost his job. Or at the very least, he will be severely punished. In the end, the guest managed to drill this wall. He did it very quickly and without any hesitation. The guy did everything he could, but now he is powerless, and you can see from his expression how afraid he is of the consequences. Molly saw her savior and immediately exhaled, because since he was nearby, now she definitely had no one to fear. She was a little scared, but inside she clearly understood that finally, her life would definitely get better. Meanwhile, the sea turned into a man. She ran to hug Sylvia because if it weren't for her, none of this would have happened and they would still be afraid of the Count. They are happy that now they will have a new life, although this guy didn't even tell them anything, and they are already sure of it. Molly is incredibly grateful to her for the fact that, knowing that she would be in danger, Sylvia still tried to help and did everything she could. She started to cry. She wants to tell her a lot of things, but she can't gather all her thoughts and words together. The girl replied that she understood everything without words, actually, as usual. After all, over so many years they got to know each other very well. At that moment, the savior approached them and offered them a handkerchief so that they could both wipe away their tears and calm down. They were very pleased because it had been a long time since someone had taken care of them. It was a small thing, but for them it was incredibly pleasant. Sylvia knows how to appreciate what others do for her. For her, every action has its own value. She accepted the handkerchief with great gratitude and apologized for talking so loudly to him at first. It was just very important for her to tell him what was going on here. She could be kicked out of here at any moment, so she had to raise her voice, to which he replied that everything was fine. Because thanks to her courage, justice prevailed. Everyone will be happy and get what they deserve. Meanwhile, the Count and his wife offered the guest tea and didn't even realize that his second partner had already managed to finish the job. The man only plans to make it clear that they won't go anywhere without Molly, but in fact, everything is already done. At this moment, the Count is worried that his assistants will have time to do everything. But here one can only say one thing. He is worried for a reason. In the meantime, they all knocked on the door, of course. Grabov allowed them to enter. He can't wait to see what his surprise will be when he realizes what happened. The door opens. That guy, Sylvia, comes in, and she has a girl in her arms whom they are all seeing for the first time. And the man realized that, judging by everything, the rat he had just thrown was indeed half human. He had a fear that the young duke might know that they were trying to destroy this child, and judging by how pleased she was, it wouldn't end well for him. He immediately thought of deceiving the duke, in the hope that everything could still be fixed. He began to act as if he was glad that Sylvia had finally found the girl, but it was unlikely that she would play along with him, especially since she had already told the duke everything. He says what a great girl she is, promises to reward her for this later, then asks her to leave the lady with him and go to his room. The girl sees through his dirty plans. He wants to remove Molly from the duke's sight and intimidate her to hush up the story. He just started to pick up the child, and she quickly reacted because, at the very least, she was disgusted by his slightest touch. She bit his finger very hard with her sharp teeth, showing that she did not want this man to come near her, let alone pick her up. It hurt him so much that he couldn't help but say out loud that it would have been better to get rid of her right away when she was running around his desk. Then he realized that he had been heard and immediately fell silent. And the young duke now wanted to hear from him whether he really had tried to destroy the moths through the servants, or rather with their hands. At that moment, his wife bursts into the room. She starts asking what is going on here, and out of fear, the man doesn't even notice her. He tries to explain that he didn't give such orders and has nothing against Molly. Sylvia looks at him from the outside and believes that justice exists in this world. And from today on, he will no longer be as powerful and self-confident as he was before. It is very good that this man looks at the situation as objectively as possible. He gets up from his chair and asks Count Bluewood to listen to him carefully. He doubted him from the very beginning. But now, he has no doubt that the Count is completely different, unlike what he seems to be. They have some technology that allowed them to hear everything that was happening together. Where his grandson was, he heard with his own ears how the Count's assistant was looking for the mouse and saying that it would soon come to an end. How he called her a damned creature who was nothing but trouble and that she wasn't even useful. And he also heard how Sylvia was the only one who begged him not to do it with tears in her eyes. It's all about a pair of special magic earrings. They allow you to hear all conversations where there is another person who has a second such earring. That's why it was very funny for him to hear the words of the Count, who was convincing him that everything was fine here. Besides all this, they knew the truth in advance. They just wanted to check visually whether this person would dare to deceive them and how he would do it. Then the man approached Molly and offered her to go into his arms. She was very afraid, but Sylvia still handed her over and said that this man was safe. Although the girl was afraid to go to him until the very end, you never know what might happen. She has no idea why these people came for her, who they are, and what the likelihood is that her life will get better with them. Meanwhile, he talks to someone through another earring-shaped device, relaying information that the lady was in danger but is now fine, and also asking what the instructions would be. No one around understands what is happening. It's as if he is talking to himself. But that's how it looks to those who don't know anything about the latest technologies. In fact, there is nothing wrong with this. He is just talking to someone and asking for advice on how best to punish that tyrant who pretends to be white and fluffy. Everyone is waiting to see what he will tell them after this. The woman is very worried about her husband because she understands that these people will not just leave here. Meanwhile, The man advises the Count not to even think about running away, because this will only make things worse. As long as there are doors that see and hear, they will still find him anywhere in this world in a matter of hours. Strangely, in the end, those two left without saying goodbye, leaving behind a feeling that many more surprises were still awaiting them. The Count fell to the floor because he imagined what he would have to pay for everything he had done. Sylvia looked at him with a smile. For the last time, just from the realization that the torment and humiliation were over, she felt very good in her soul. Meanwhile, Molly was promised to take her to her estate, but at first the girl did not understand what this meant, and then asked if this could really mean that she had parents, to which the guy replied that she understood everything correctly, and also said that they had been looking for her with all their hearts all these years, only it sounded like the most touching and important words in her life. Not only did she turn out to be half human, half mouse, but she was also the daughter of a noble family, and who would have thought that the Duke of Valkyries himself came for her? Everything is very confusing, but she is madly waiting for this meeting with the family, whom she has never seen. At least in her memory, there are no such moments for some reason. She thinks that since the Duke came personally, it means she is from a very important family. Most likely this is true. Molly is already eager for them to come soon, and she has dressed her friend in beautiful dresses of which they will surely have a lot. We'll feed them all sorts of tasty treats, and they will be lying on a fluffy bed and not on a cold floor without a carpet. It turns out that everything is going exactly as she got from the fairy, only it didn't happen right after her wish, but that's not important anymore. Now they will be together with her. They will be happy, and Molly will be even happier because she will return to her family. Sylvia still can't believe that such a miracle happened to them, but just yesterday she didn't even think and couldn't imagine that everything would turn out like this. She looks at happy Molly, and that's all she needs to be happy, because when she's happy, her soul also feels very good and pleasant. All the way they imagined how they would live in luxurious conditions, and when they arrived at the Ratson family estate, Molly was a little upset because she wasn't warned that this house would be so small. It really was for some little mice. For mice it may be huge, but for a person it is something like a toy house, and that is no exaggeration. Molly is very upset because she can't imagine how Sylvia will be able to get inside, because the house is half her size. Meanwhile, the man they came here with tells the guards that he has come to see His Holiness. And then Sylvia somehow realized that Molly's parents were most likely the high priests of Animanolia. This world is divided into two continents, Terranolia, where only people live, and Animalia, where the likes of Molly, half human, half beast, live. Between them, there are still lands of the Valkyries, that is, you can get from one world to another only by passing through the strictest control of the Valkyries' possessions. This means that the high priests of the mysterious land of Animanolia, her parents. Now Molly seems to be starting to remember something. They said that the daughter of the previous high priest of Animanolia disappeared as a child. In the world of Animanolia, abilities are passed down only through blood, so the position of high priest is always occupied by the clan with the strongest gift of healing. This means that when she first turned into a human, all her wounds healed on their own. And this is because she inherited a healing ability that she had not known about throughout her entire life. Meanwhile, the guard announces that His Holiness is waiting for guests in the audience hall and that they can all safely enter the territory. The man invited Molly to take him into his arms so that she wouldn't get tired from being unaccustomed to walking such a distance. At first, she thought about going on her own 2 feet, but then she agreed. After all, if they offer, why refuse? Literally, a couple of minutes later, she saw her parents. She immediately realized that it was them, because something inside her told her so. You can see from their faces how bored they were and had almost resigned themselves to the fact that this would never happen. And then such happiness. All this time she was waiting for this moment. And when it happened, Molly was completely confused because she knows how to behave. She has a lot of questions in her head. Where to start a conversation, how to look at them, and what to call them. I spent my entire life fighting for survival, day after day, and dreaming of a family was an unaffordable luxury. Instead of thinking about her family, she had to look for at least some food. That's how she lived. And now, it will be very unusual to accept the fact that now her life will never be the same. Next to her, there will be relatives who will provide everything. Love, support, and this is the greatest wealth in the life of any person and animal. For parents, all this is also very exciting. They have completely different feelings. But still, one thing is for sure, they are incredibly happy. After all, parental love and a child's love are two different things, but they are equally strong and indescribable. The parents began to apologize to their daughter. They believe that they are guilty before her, and now they will try to do everything possible to atone for their guilt. At this moment, the moth has simply indescribable sensations. It feels a huge heaviness inside itself, but it is very pleasant because it is filled with love. She would have stood like that with them until night, but this could have been done on any other day. Now it is much more important how everyone's life has been going all these years. It's hard for parents just to think about what their child lived through without them, and what difficulties she went through. Molly began to calm them down. She told about her friend Sylvia, who had been with her all this time and saved her many times. Only she was in the most difficult times and said that sooner or later, and not just the two of them, will be happy. It was only thanks to this person that Molly didn't give up. And if she hadn't been there, it's unknown if she would be alive now. Sylvia was a little embarrassed because she had never heard anything like that from Molly before, but now she saw that it was all very valuable to her, that he would remind her literally every moment. In that case, the father of the family ordered to immediately prepare a feast. They want to arrange the most luxurious reception for the savior of their daughter. If you look at it from this angle, the table is really gorgeous. There are a lot of different things, but there is one thing. If you take all this food together, it would fit in her palm, but that's not the main thing. What's important is that they tried. The girl especially liked their unusual dishes. They are very elegant and charming, although maybe this is because she rarely saw such dishes, and if she did, she took them to others. Meanwhile, the mother insists that her daughter try her favorite dish. It is very nutritious for forest mice. She also wanted to feed her from her hands, but Molly stopped her because eating from hands is indecent even according to etiquette. Overall, the feast is going great. If you look at them from the outside, you might even think that this is not their first meeting. They are so used to each other. And then suddenly it started. The parents seem to start a competition in custody. Everyone tries to offer something for the moth. They constantly ask how she feels and serve different dishes to her closer, although she can reach everything herself. After that, Mom started talking about what she heard from the Duke, that she has an unusual ability to turn into a human. And if that was true, then she wanted to ask how she managed to lift the curse, although Molly didn't immediately understand why she called it a curse. But then she quickly remembered that it had already been said that there was a curse that turned people into animals. If it was difficult to dispel even magically, then it was very strong. She herself has a question about how it was destroyed then, because only Sylvia was nearby. Could it really have influenced her somehow? Molly answered as it is, that she herself does not quite understand how it happened, and would also like to know the answer to this question, so that her daughter could better understand what could have influenced this. Her mother told her that the curse that was on her, it can only be removed by a kiss filled with true love. Only then can the human form be restored. Molly remembered that Sylvia had kissed her on the forehead many times, for different reasons. And perhaps this is it. And she also remembered how Sylvia had told her many times how much she loved her. Only then Molly hadn't attached such importance to it. Now she understands that Sylvia was like an angel to her. She was her salvation, her happiness, her everything. She was so imbued with these realizations that she immediately began to tell her parents that as long as she lived in this house, Sylvia should live here with her. She begs them to let them live here together. But from her parents' reaction, it is clear that they are clearly not ready for this. They had almost agreed, when suddenly Molly abruptly changed her mind. She realized that since her parents could afford her a lot, she needed to take advantage of the opportunity and ask them to live with Sylvia in the human world. Although she understood perfectly well how unexpected it would sound to them. Even though she just found the family she dreamed of, she has something else that is equally important to her. Since this house is too small for their friend, they have no choice but to take advantage of the opportunity and live together where they both will be comfortable. And she also said in front of everyone that she would like to make her friend the happiest. And if for this, she needs to sacrifice her life in the same house with her family, then she is ready for it. Her mother was always very kind, so she immediately accepted her daughter's wish and said that if she decided so, then so be it. And also offered them to live in the Valkyrie's house for a while, if of course they wanted to, and if not, she wouldn't force them. And then the father joined in. He thinks that his wife was a bit hasty with her answer. He is apparently not very happy with this idea. Although he would really like Molly to stay with them, he doesn't want to ruin his relationship with her, so he is willing to listen to her. Meanwhile, the man says that to be honest, he expected this outcome because he knows how close Molly and Sylvia are to each other, and that they could not live separately. And he also said that he would be happy to shelter the two of them if they wanted it. Only before that, he should hear from them personally what they think about it. The parents in turn agree, but only asked to promise that the man will protect them and if something happens, will always inform them about it. Molly doesn't believe that she was able to persuade them to do this, even though it's literally written on their faces that they are ready to die from anxiety, but they don't even try to hold her back by force, but all for the sake of her being happy and not being afraid to talk to them about anything. If she really was 5 years old, she wouldn't understand anything, but something is clearly wrong here. She's almost sure of it. Thanks to Sylvia, her curse was lifted, but no one else in these lands seems to have been freed. At that moment, she thought that if the parents, the high priest with such authority, were forced to hide and let go of the child they had been looking for so long, it meant that there must be a reason for this. Although initially almost nothing was clear, now the picture is finally starting to come together little by little. They let her go, albeit with pain in their hearts, because they want to protect her from an external threat, and the proof of this threat lies in the future, which is already very close, much closer than it may seem. In 10 years, the post of High Priest of the Animalology will not be occupied by their kind of forest mice, but by those who carry poisonous venom, the kind of basilisks. And in the meantime, her mother has one question for her, which concerns the girl she came with. Namely, does she understand their language? The man said that Sylvia understood everything, so the lady thanked the lady for saving her daughter. For this, they will be forever in her debt, and she will be able to ask them at any time for whatever and as much as she wants. The girl replied that in fact their daughter had helped her in many ways, so there was no one among them who had done more. So it would be wrong to expect anything from them, and even more so to ask. Molly's mom will always think that Sylvia gave her daughter a new life, no matter what anyone says. At that moment, Molly suddenly wanted to know what her real name was, because Sylvia came up with the name Molly for her, and she probably has one that was given to her from the first day of her life. The parents replied that they named her Grace Ratson, but who would have thought then that their child would find herself in such a situation that she would not know her real name? She really liked the name, but Molly is also a good name, so she'll have to make a very difficult choice. Molly and Grace, both names were given to her by loved ones, so she will definitely keep both in her heart for the rest of her life. At some point, very unexpectedly, the parents' assistants brought a huge box, and after that, the father asked her to accept it. It's a sacred hammer. Only an heir with the blood of the Ratsons can become its owner, so she must take it with her. Is the power of the Ratson really divine physical power? But with such an object, it seems unlikely that it can cause damage. The parents immediately warned that people shouldn't do this. It was intended for something completely different. And they are giving away this hammer right now. Because who knows? Maybe something will happen again that they won't have such an opportunity. In fact, Molly should understand that these are all hints. Now they are under a curse and cannot use the duties of the High Priest. And the essence of this hammer is that in a dangerous moment she can hit this hammer anywhere and it will carry her to a safe place. It is a very useful item, but the father immediately saw that she was already planning to use it for entertainment. Therefore, he warned that it should only be used to escape from danger and nothing else. At that moment, Molly thought that if he insisted on it so much, it meant that this hammer had other functions that she could accidentally activate without knowing all the information. Father also reminded that life is unpredictable. There may come a time when even in Valkyrie it will not be safe, so they give this hammer as soon as they can. All these words confirm her fears. This means that Molly understands everything correctly. It is not for nothing that her parents, instead of smiling, are now so sad. In any case, she decided that she would not ask them for information that they were not telling her. She will somehow find out about everything herself, because it is obvious that they are all so sad for no reason, despite the fact that today is such a beautiful and bright day. And in the meantime, it was time for her to leave. But saying goodbye turned out to be very difficult. She felt a little guilty because it turned out that she first made her parents happy and then upset them. Finally, they asked their daughter to take care of herself and reminded the Duke that he had promised to protect these girls. A very light moment, but so far everyone is holding on and no one has a single tear in their eye. Who would have thought that everything could end so unexpectedly? Although maybe it happens for the best. And in the meantime, they are already entering the city by carriage. It is very noisy here. You can feel that the city is alive. It's very spacious and at the same time cozy, although initially Molly thought that she wouldn't like living where there are too many people. She liked that the streets were very clean, although there were so many people here that it was amazing. In some areas where much fewer people live, it can be very dirty. But here, she had not noticed a single piece of garbage yet. She also finds it interesting to observe that some people have features of different animals, so much so that you don't even have to guess what half of them they are. She asked the man why these people were acting as if someone couldn't turn into a beast and attack someone, to which he replied that there was no need to worry. That wouldn't happen here. And he also said that it was too early to be surprised, because they had just arrived in the city and the place where they would live would impress her much more. They have almost reached the castle, she will definitely be comfortable there, and they will definitely take care of that. Molly admitted that she was literally bursting with impatience, wondering if he was as beautiful on the inside as he was on the outside. Since they weren't prepared to go straight home with Molly as soon as they arrived, they decided to set aside some room for her, and they would also need to put away her things, although there aren't many of them. But they are there. Here they have already arrived at the Valkyrie castle. There is a huge territory here, so she was immediately advised not to go far so as not to get lost. As soon as Molly got out of the carriage, she was immediately recognized as the same thieving Lady Ratson because of the same Ratson family. Even though they say nice things to her and are happy to see her, she still has a feeling that meeting them could be dangerous. While they say she's adorable, she sees them as dangerous animals looking for an opportunity to attack. The thing is most likely that she is not used to seeing so many people in front of her and being the center of attention, especially feeling awkward. Who usually hunts such people? At least that's what she heard. She is still afraid of attracting people's attention. In her past life, she was not happy when people noticed hers. Molly knows she's an unusual mouse now, but she can't erase the bad memories from her mind, and she doesn't want to bother Sylvia with this day after day, although the girl has already noticed that something is wrong with her. At this point, even the Duke noticed that Sir Golf had embarrassed the girl, so he couldn't help but reprimand him. He said that no matter how nice the lady was, it was impolite to stare at her so intently, for which the guy immediately apologized. And then he asked why they were only scolding him, because everyone was looking at her the same way, just like he was. He answered him that everything was very simple. He just had the most severe expression on his face. He asked him to remember that such a look could scare a child, so he advised him to be careful. He also asked everyone from the Silver Order to disperse and not to crowd around in the future because Molly was feeling uncomfortable. In that case, Sir Leopard approached them and offered to take responsibility for the safety of the young lady, but the Duke replied that he was no better, to which the Leopard replied that at least he was prettier than the Knight Golf. And the Duke was already so fed up with this that he made it clear with his look that now was not the time to discuss this. Right after that, the guy also had a rule that everyone from the cat and dog families were forbidden to approach Lady Ratson until she got used to it and settled in here. Many of them thought about saying hello to Molly in person, but now they can't do it, and don't quite understand why. There is no one here who treats her badly, and the Duke forbids them to even look in her direction. At first glance, it seems that everything here is subject to a strict system, but people and those who are half-beasts communicate calmly with each other, without tension. When, according to the Treaty of the Valkyries, people and those who were half-beasts lived on the same land without hostility, in peace, and the main figure of that era was the Duke of the Valkyries himself. It's a pity that she already knows that in the future, this world will collapse, and no one will be ready for it. In the future that she remembers, in just 5 years, the Duke of Valkyries, the symbol of this peace, will die. After his mysterious death from cardiac arrest, minor skirmishes will begin between humans and those who are half-beast. Then everything will only get worse and worse. Thus, the dance between the races will only deepen. The peace treaty will be broken. Rivers of blood will be shed, and eventually the Third Great War will begin. And Edmuna will silently defend Terranolia until he dies a death after which not even a body will remain of him. After his death, both continents, which seem to have been waiting for this moment, will simultaneously declare a truce, and the Valkyries will be accused as a defender of war and wiped off the face of the earth. Of course, years later there was slander about the instigator of the war, but by that time the world had already disappeared and the gap between people and those who were half-beasts became insurmountable. Edmund couldn't protect anyone in the end despite all his efforts. But if she knows the future, hopefully there should be a way to change everything. She might just be a little field mouse, but she wants to repay at least these two who helped her with kindness, so the girl asked her to listen carefully. She said that she wanted him, his lordship, to live a very long time, and the man didn't even understand at first who she was saying this to. He asked if he had understood everything correctly and if he had not misheard, to which she replied that she had told him that he had understood everything correctly. The girl also suggested checking his health later. She is, after all, the daughter of the Ratsons, and he asked what she, so young, could do with him. Her dad always said there was no illness the Ratson house couldn't cure. Wounds, illnesses, insomnia, even soul herbs. Absolutely everything. True, each has its own limits. But if she masters the power of their sacred hammer, nothing will be impossible for her. Suddenly he says that he doesn't need help, and he also said it as if he doesn't have any illnesses. He also said that he knows his body better than anyone else. And the problem is that she knows a lot more about him than he thinks. For example, that he will soon be gone. And the man also recalled how he heard that the high priest told her to use the relic only in extreme cases, and she promised to obey him. He tries to explain that the sacred hammer is not a toy and can't be used at every step whenever you want. And if she plays around and someone finds out about it, he won't be able to protect her anymore. His grandson tried to defend Molly. He says that she just wants to play doctor and he doesn't see anything wrong with it. In the end, the man agreed, but asked her not to worry about his health, especially since he had heard from doctors that he still had at least 50 years to live. When she found out it was a heart attack, she immediately thought he probably had some kind of chronic illness, but it turns out that's not the case. It is quite possible that someone could have set this up. In such cases, they usually mix something into the food. It could be someone who handles the food or carries it, so it's worth checking all food carefully. That's the best thing she can do for him now. Since Molly was in this city, he can't just stand there and watch the Duke die and have someone help him with it. She will never allow the past to repeat itself. Otherwise, she will never forgive herself. Meanwhile, she was already led to the room where she could settle. There is so much space here that several more rooms could be made in this room, and they would still be huge. She is not used to such large territories, and also cannot realize that all this is only for her, and that in this whole house everyone also has such rooms. In this regard, no one is discriminated against here. For the first time in her life, she had her own place to live, and before the only place where she could rest peacefully was Sylvia's arms. All that was left was to figure out what to do in this huge room now. The first thing she came up with was to somehow train her body so that she had the strength to protect her friend. She needed to work on her endurance and overcome her fear of crowds because she couldn't be alone here, no matter how much she wanted to. Meanwhile, she heard some steps from the corridor, which were clearly approaching this room. The head maid came to her. From now on, she will take care of the young mistress and will fulfill any of her wishes. The girl got scared. She hid under the bed, but Svetlana quickly won her over and said that she didn't need to be afraid. The woman asks how Molly managed to get into such a place, and the girl starts making excuses, as if she saw something under the bed, although it is clear that she was just scared. The assistant advised her to change her clothes, because after such a hard day, she needed to remove all the dirty things from herself, although Molly in such cases was used to simply dusting herself off, nothing more. Especially since this suit looks very tight, and this house is full of clothes that she can put on and finally not restrict her movements. Svetlana had just prepared clothes for her. She suggested looking at the new wardrobe. Everyone thought that the girl was happy, but she said that she didn't care at all what to wear. The main thing is that the clothes just exist. Assistants are sure that very soon she will change her mind and will be happy to take care of her appearance. When they started asking about her preferences in color or glitter, Molly didn't even know what to answer because she really didn't care. She has been used to wearing the same thing all her life and doesn't understand why people need a huge wardrobe. And yet she said she wanted something blue, because her friend has loved that color ever since they met. She also remembered that Sylvia loves gold and white, so she chose clothes of only those colors. When she started saying that all these dresses would suit her friend perfectly, Svetlana started hinting that all this is very good. Sharing is also a good deed, but you need to choose something for yourself. The girl chose something for herself, but she is much more interested in giving something to her friend, who certainly does not expect it from her. She chose the first dress she came across for herself, and now she goes to Sylvia to please her with a new wardrobe. She really wants to see how Sylvia tries on new looks and how beautiful she will be in them. Molly always saw her in the same thing, so it's all very interesting. The girl opens the box and is surprised because her friend managed to choose exactly what she likes both in style and color, and then asked if it was possible to find such a beautiful dress. But in fact, Molly could list hundreds of things that would suit Sylvia's taste. She just put this dress on, and Molly reacts as if she saw an incredible angel with indescribable beauty in front of her. She started giving her so many compliments that the girl didn't have time to react, and Molly even pretended to be blinded by her beauty. It turns out that all this time Sylvia also took advantage of the opportunity and picked out a whole wardrobe for her friend for different occasions. She picked out some pajamas, some weekend wear, and more, so she wanted Molly to try them on too. The girl also said that, in fact, from the very moment Molly became human, she dreamed of doing something similar for her. Sylvia offers to accept these clothes, but Molly is in no hurry. She reacted as if she didn't need it. Now the girl thinks that Sarah is too concerned about her, although she still wears the same clothes as before. But first she thinks about her. Her friend picked it out for her. The girl can't be picky, especially since everything she chose is incredibly cute. Molly immediately tried on one look. She really liked it, and the color really suits her. It highlights her hair and eyes well. And in the meantime, Sylvia wanted to take a quick bath and only after that tries on her new clothes. While her friend was busy, the assistant suggested that Molly take a look around the estate so that she could get her bearings better tomorrow. The girl agreed, and now they are already in the building where the Duke himself spends most of his time. He is here almost every day. Although the young lady would hardly have to visit here often, Svetlana thought that it would be interesting for her to visit here. It so happened that they were not alone here. As soon as they started talking about the Duke, they saw him literally a couple of seconds later, only Molly did not understand who this person was next to him. Svetlana greeted the gentleman as expected, and Molly repeated the same words because she doesn't know how to do it correctly and was afraid to say something wrong. The assistant said that she was accompanying the young lady, showing her the estate, and the man replied how fortunate they had met. He suggests to sort it out completely, but the girl doesn't understand what he's talking about yet because it sounds somehow ambiguous. She has no idea what it could mean. Out of the blue, he reminded her how she wanted to play doctor and for some reason sat her on his shoulder. Then he said that he was very busy and with such short legs she wouldn't even make it to his office by sunset, so it would be better if they went like this. It was a little unpleasant that he had just called her legs short, although most likely the man did not mean this and did not want to offend her. He probably just wanted to say that she was a child who could not walk as fast as an adult. She decided to remember these words so that she could definitely take revenge someday, but even this sounds a little funny. Here they are already in his office, only for some reason he sat her down on a chair. And he sat down at the table, and when she asked him what he was doing, he answered that he was working now. Molly asked how the doctor game was. He invited her to play. And there were only documents around. It looked like he had completely forgotten that she was there. The man offers her to sit and watch from the side. But this doesn't look much like a game. Molly doesn't like this idea anymore. It's obvious that this person has only work on her mind. And if they hadn't seen each other, she would now be doing something more interesting than sitting in this office and trying not to disturb him. Meanwhile, the maid comes into the office. She brought tea for the gentleman. At first, the girl did not pay attention to it. But then I felt a special smell that is impossible not to notice. It is special, and not like anything else. This tea is clearly made from Cinderella tea leaves. What she knows about them is that they have an invigorating effect. There is just one very important point. Drinking this tea often is very harmful, although if you work in such a rhythm, there is no way out of your head, and she understands him perfectly. Maybe she will be able to somehow wean him off this tea. It will only be for the best. Molly watched the girl calmly as she did her job, but suddenly she noticed that she was adding something to the tea, and it was a special ingredient. Mixing which with this particular type of tea creates a paralyzing effect that has an effect on the nerves. But this is already very dangerous, and it is not clear why she does this and whether the Duke knows about it. Naturally, she has no choice. Now the real game of doctor begins. She needs to intervene right now and not let him drink a drop. The girl literally jumped up and told him to take that cup away from himself, or else he would feel worse. The girl fell a little. She miscalculated her strength, but the main thing is that she attracted his attention and he didn't drink a sip. It was very painful for her because she hit her nose right on the floor, and this is very unpleasant, even too much. Before she started beating around the bush, she told him straight out that you can't mix tea with anything else because it would just paralyze him. If you mix tea leaves with this ingredient, you can get a more invigorating effect. But in certain proportions, this combination paralyzes the nerves, depriving not only of consciousness but also the ability to feel pain. Because of this, 6 months after the boom in popularity of this remedy, some nobles complained about the consequences. This was especially disastrous for knights like the Duke, for whom sensitivity is vital. The man says that he often drinks like this. But nothing like this has ever happened to him. And she replied that this is the pure truth and accurate information from her parents, although in fact they did not tell her anything like this. This is only her knowledge. She mentioned them in order to sound more convincing, to which the man said that if this was confirmed information, then it was a serious matter. He seriously thought about the fact that no one had told him anything about this before. The assistant immediately realized that all the accusations would be directed at her, so she began to justify herself. Allegedly, she was told that this was a popular way to cheer up in the capital, so she used it. The Duke looked at her with a very suspicious expression because the fact that this girl was trying to harm him seemed more convincing than the fact that she allegedly listened to the advice of others and did not know that it was dangerous. Then for some reason he changed his mind, said that he supposedly looked into her eyes and thought that she was telling the truth, although it is strange how he could understand this. And even more so, trust a person whose name he does not even know. The only thing is that the ingredient that the assistant used was supposed to become popular much later. It's strange who could have advised her to do this before it was supposed to happen. And then the gentleman starts asking who exactly gave her this idea, and she starts to pause because she's probably afraid to tell the truth. And then she says that this man was Earl Hamilton, and the Duke knows this man very well, even too well. The Duke's face changed very abruptly. He ordered that this man be brought to him. Apparently he was going to deal with him personally. Here they have already met. The accused is lying upside down and trying to explain that this is some kind of mistake. He asks how he knew that when mixing tea leaves and another ingredient, you get poison. If he knew this, he would never have advised anything like that. The man realized that this person was probably just waiting until he became addicted to this tea, would ask for more and more of it, and eventually die from it. He can only praise this guy for choosing such a good method, because who would have thought that the tea he drinks every day is the reason why he might die in the future? Suddenly the man asked how old the guy was this year, to which he replied that he was now 24. Then he remembered how they met when he was taking down the illegal slave trade guild his parents ran. It seems like it was yesterday. Then the guy also called him an enemy, but then the man thought that it was natural because he was only 14. But now he understands that it was more than serious, and that over the years the hatred towards him only accumulated. Then he told him that the guy had lost both his parents and all his property. All he had left was his family, and he took responsibility and left him by his side, until he clears the karma of the family and fulfills his share. And here is the result. He turned out to be the main enemy who was not worth helping. Until now he has fulfilled his duties, but now it is time for the Count to take responsibility for his actions. In fact, he is more interested not in where this man has so much hatred towards him, but in how Molly could know all this. The assistant suggested that since she was of the Ratson clan, she might have received a revelation from God, which is quite possible. The Duke believes that if this were so, Ratson would not be cursed, although other than that, there is no other way to explain it. Meanwhile, he is already in the office with her. The girl has waited for him and has no idea what the conversation will be about now. He started by demanding to know how she knew that the tea was somehow different, since it was impossible to tell from the outside that something had been added to it. As Molly thought, she acted as if she knew too much. She started thinking about what to say to that, and her cheeks turned very red. She is sure that she needs to convince him properly, otherwise she will only achieve mistrust on his part, and that is very bad. She started saying that she had gotten sick many times because she was so hungry that she had no choice but to eat whatever came into her sight first. That's how she learned that you have to be careful with food, especially with unknown food. Before meeting the strongest prayer deeply felt this in a situation when it is difficult to take care of even one of your own bodies, a house mouse extended its paw to her. She learned from that baby how to find edible food, how to avoid people, and that even a common mouse can have fun. That friend was a benefactor to her, but she herself died after eating rat poison thrown to her by people. It was one of the worst days of her life, losing a friend. It's very painful. It's just impossible to describe in words. So, using her role as a doctor as an excuse, she checked the food before his lordship because there was nothing else she could do for him. Molly finally said that maybe it was too late to be greedy, but she never wanted to see anyone die again. Everything sounded so logical that now he has no comments or questions for her. While she started crying, he wondered what he should do with this child. Now and then asked her to stop crying. And said that there was no need to stir up painful memories anymore. It seemed to him that she had become emotional because Ratson's power was doubted, and she herself thought that she hadn't actually intended to cry so much. She had simply unconsciously remembered the past, and now she understood that she needed to stop. The man asked her not to worry too much about it after all. Hamilton was just a small fish too, and he wouldn't let such a guy get hurt just because he let his guard down. That wouldn't happen again. In fact, she is very happy to hear this, but she is still confused by the fact that the Duke is somehow unperturbed, as if he is used to this kind of threats. He didn't seem to be thinking about herbs, but if this isn't the first time he's faced with such a threat, it would be nice to know if there's anything else that could lead to the Duke's demise. Meanwhile, he takes her in his arms, and Molly addresses him as his lordship. Suddenly, the Duke immediately frowned and asked, What else, Your Highness, because she can simply call him grandfather without all these formalities. He will be much happier this way because literally everyone around him treats him formally, and he really misses a person with whom this will not happen. Moreover, she should call him that. But it is unlikely that Molly will be able to get used to it as quickly as he would like, and now he's asking her to go somewhere. It sounds like she'll have to sit in one place again and watch him do something. Then he explained that he thought he should pay the lady doctor, and he also had a request. The girl thought that they could go anywhere, but not to this room, where everything was seething, hissing, and there was complete chaos around. It's never quiet here for a second. Everyone is cutting something, taking something out, pouring something, arguing, and so on every day. It's very strange what they're doing here, and she also doesn't understand what this has to do with repaying for help. Does he really want to feed her? It turns out that he offers her to play doctor here, although it is not yet entirely clear how possible this is, because everyone here is busy, and if you approach someone with a game, you can piss them off. If any of the cooks see her, they will immediately want to chase her away so that she doesn't get in the way, especially since she's a mouse. It's obvious to her that everyone here is afraid of her, considers her unclean. Molly has been avoided ever since she appeared here. She told him that she wanted to leave here, that she was not comfortable here, and he reacted as if he had brought her here not to play, but to give a short lesson. It was as if he already had these phrases prepared. He asked if she would really spend her whole life hiding from someone just because she was a mouse. Then he hinted that, in fact, even some wolves are morally weaker than some mice, so he asked not to look at the world so unequivocally. It seems like he brought her here knowing that she is afraid of the kitchen, as if he wants to test how she will cope with this test. But why he does this is unclear. This situation can be looked at from two sides. Firstly, he is trying to help her overcome her fear. Secondly, he is just bored and wants to see how a little girl will run away from adults. Now she really wants to tell him to let her go, but she can't even look him in the eye. She thinks to herself that if she doesn't leave here right now, then someone here will cook some kind of dinner for her. Suddenly, the girl begins to hear the cooks talking to each other. They have such kind voices that all fear immediately dissipated. Even the most dangerous animals smile so sweetly that she already feels comfortable here, and they even said that everyone was waiting for the moment when they could see the lady in person. These people seemed completely different from those she expected to see here. Did Molly just paint them as scary beasts in her head? But in real life, everything is completely different. It is possible that they only behave like this in front of the Duke, and when he leaves, they will show their true colors. But she tries not to think about it for now. For now, what's happening here? No one approaches her because they're afraid of scaring her, and that's very calming. At that moment, she thought that indeed, if she couldn't overcome even this, she would never be able to lift the curse from the Ratson family. Molly gave her hand to the assistant chef. It was very cool and even liked, but initially she perceived them all as some kind of demons. The girl offered to bake cookies for the young lady. She just has some free time and she has long wanted to try a new recipe. Even though everything is happening absolutely calmly and beautifully, the girl is still wary. She just needs to get used to them. After all, after the first meeting, it is impossible to understand what kind of people they are. But since she is already here, she thought that it would be just right to check the food for Grandpa Sir. Everyone started saying how cute she was and even suggested that they all put together a new menu, because everyone was probably tired of the old one. Molly agreed to make a menu for today, and then they'll do it themselves, because she doesn't understand it, and now she has nothing to do anyway and wanted to try something new. They looked at this menu, and the first thing they noticed was that she had problems with spelling, so the Duke will definitely take care of this soon as. The girl wrote on the menu everything that she was used to eating where she lived before, and that was wheat, sunflower seeds, and flower pollen. The man looked at this menu and asked if it was by chance that she said that everyone needs to eat right for a long life. I realized more that she, out of habit, first writes down the cheapest products that do not saturate, but only fill the stomach. But now, when there are no problems with food, you can include in the diet all the most useful things and not think about the fact that something might run out or something is missing. Although she herself understands this, the assistant chef began to say that the menu she had put together would be great for a mouse, but not for a grown man who needs strength for the whole day. And she also said that there are many more tasty and healthy dishes in this world than she can imagine. To get to know new products and recipes better, the girl promised to surprise her every day. Today, she decided to cook a nut pie with almond milk, which is ideal for breakfast. And here is this pie already in front of her. Molly just ate the first piece. She even cried because it was the most delicious thing she had ever eaten in her entire life, and it was just an ordinary sweet pie. The cook hasn't even fully demonstrated her skills yet. She will definitely have something to surprise the child with in the future. The girl is crazy about how the pie can be so crispy on the outside and melt the moment it touches the tongue. So she suggested that her grandfather try this wonderful dish. She broke off a small piece for him and said that if he refused, she would be offended and eat it all herself. At first, he wanted to refuse because he was not used to being fed by a child. But for her sake, he did it anyway. The Duke quickly swallowed the piece of pie and didn't even react in any way, and also said that it tasted like a regular pie with regular walnuts, nothing special. The girl thought that even though he was a knight, he was born a nobleman, which meant that he had eaten such food countless times and had become accustomed to it since childhood. It is still unclear to her how one can get used to such magnificence because it is simply divine food that not only relieves hunger but also gives a good mood. Meanwhile, she became interested in asking if there was something that he loved to eat the most, because surely every person has such a special thing, but he replied that there was nothing like that anymore. Before, he could be surprised by something, but with age, there was nothing left that he loved more than anything else. And then she tells him that she thinks that in your favorite things, it's not the thing itself that's more important, but the meaning behind it. Like when she, who was not interested in clothes, began to like the clothes chosen by her friend, as well as her friend herself. Every time a person eats delicious food, he thinks about something good or about someone and so on in almost everything. He still told her that he couldn't even think of anything he liked more than other foods. Lately, he still needs to be treated with certain dishes because in his time, he tried too many things and he can no longer be impressed. Meanwhile, the Duke suggests that they end here. He still has a lot of things to do, and he warned the girl that if she wants to eat something else, she can stay here as long as she wants. He also allowed her to walk wherever she wanted. But to avoid one place, if he found out that she had been there, he would be very upset. He asked to make an agreement that she would never enter the Serenity Palace because it would be dangerous for her there. Serenity, from the name alone she feels calm and peaceful, so she does not understand what danger he is talking about. When she asked what was so scary there, everyone went quiet, and the man replied that there was some grandson there. She still doesn't understand what it means. Molly knows that he has a grandson, but she has already seen him, so she doesn't know what kind of second grandson this is. Duke Valkyrie has 3 grandchildren. The first grandson, Edmund Valkyrie, who will later lead the Valkyries. Second grandson, Zenobia Valkyrie, known for his bitchiness. And the third grandson, who died at an early age, unable to overcome a congenital disease, Karin Valkyrie. Molly thought that the third hammer had a weak body due to a chronic illness, so he could not be a threat to her. Some time passed. Another day came. The assistant took the child for a walk. She was sure that Molly would appreciate this garden, so she brought her here. Molly has only been indoors with Lady Bluewood lately, so she could use some fresh air. She felt so comfortable with Sylvia that the week flew by. She especially liked the unlimited amount of goodies, which she still hasn't had enough of. Even though everything is going more or less well, the girl still doesn't forget that she shouldn't relax completely. She needs to find a clue about the Ratson family as quickly as possible. She was so focused on it that she didn't notice how a huge purple snake appeared nearby. This is the first betrayal that she sees in her life. She even became interested in watching it, and surprisingly, Molly was almost not scared, although the snake could turn towards her at any moment. After that, she wondered what this animal was doing on this territory. She thought that something like that couldn't happen here, and that the territory was carefully monitored. The assistant explained that because the garden is so spacious, snakes sometimes appear here, which is one of the reasons why it is better for her not to go outside alone. At that moment, Molly thought that she didn't even know that you can meet such friends here, and she's also scared if it turns out to be a basilisk. After this, the girl asked Svetlana if those who are half animals live in this area, to which the girl replied that of course, because there are no such people who are half, who do not live in the Valkyries. And there is also a kind of boa constrictor and a kind of king snakes. Since the opportunity arose, she directly asked if there was a genus of Valasisk nearby, because this was what worried her the most. Svetlana was very surprised and asked how the girl knew this genus, because she had previously said that she had always lived on the street. At first, Molly thought to herself that in the future, the Ratson family would be pushed aside and they would become the line of high priests, but she couldn't know that. And then she replied that she had just heard about it somewhere. Svetlana says, "That's how it is. But in the territory of the Valkyries, there is no family of basilisks," to which the girl asked, "What did Svetlana just say? That there are no such people who are half human, half beast in the Valkyries?" The assistant explained that, however, snakes of the basilisk family usually do not leave their territory. And in addition, this is an extremely closed genus. They say they only go outside their territory when they are asked to do so, and not otherwise. Molly thought. Why is this? Because they are not the villain's family, and it turns out that without coming to them in person, it is impossible to meet them. Even so, she can't directly enter the snake's lair, and she would also like to get more information. Unnoticed, they came to such a beautiful place that such beauty simply cannot be described in words. The girl sees this for the first time. This field of blue flowers is mesmerizing at first sight. It looks truly amazing. Svetlana is worried that the child's clothes might get dirty, but the girl has no time for that now. She wants to enjoy this moment as much as possible and touch this miracle of nature. Suddenly, the girl created a small bouquet and asked her assistant to look at it, because these are not just pretty flowers. This variety is called lobelia. This flower is used as a medicine. As soon as she said this, Svetlana immediately became interested in how this plant could be useful. Molly said that this flower is usually used for detoxification. A good friend of hers told her this. The same mouse that she knew before, and also, the amazing property of this flower is that it helps against snake bites. They didn't have time to talk about it. A boy suddenly approached them, who at first scared her, and then she felt strange, as if she had seen him before. It is not yet clear why even Svetlana was afraid of him. At least that is how it looked from the outside. While the girl was examining him, the assistant was already very worried. She asks the lady to return to her immediately. Svetlana hugged Molly tightly and asked the boy what brought him here, as if he wasn't allowed to be here. She told him that he should return to the palace quickly, and when she called him young Master Karen, everything became clear. If she calls him Charon, it means that he is the third grandson of the Duke, about whom she was told and warned. Molly never understood why everyone gets so scared when they see him. Even her. Although she doesn't know what's wrong with him, it's just felt on an energetic level. The girl at this moment thinks that if the boy is so sick that he can leave the world at a young age, then the disease is definitely terrible, and judging by the fact that people avoid him, maybe his disease is contagious. But it seems that this reaction does not come from fear that the disease will be transmitted, but as if it is the fear of prey facing a predator. It is impossible to explain it in any other way. Suddenly, the boy changed his mind. He looked around and went back where he came from. Molly noticed how Svetlana exhaled and how much easier it became for her. She really wants to know more information about this person, but it's unlikely that anyone will tell her about this. Suddenly, out of the blue, she asked Svetlana to wait here, and while the assistant did not understand what it meant, the girl had already run to Karen. I wonder what she's up to. It could be dangerous. She doesn't even know much about him. Grandpa definitely said that she was in danger too, but Molly, who survived the danger in the body of a mouse, knows. People who want to harm small living creatures have a much more terrible look than this. At least it seems to her that the Third Lord is not the kind of person who would harm her at the first opportunity. The girl took that same small bouquet of flowers and asked him to stop to accept this useful gift from her. She told him that since there were snakes here, if he was bitten, he could crush the bouquet and apply it to the wound. He looked at her at first very distrustfully and then thought about it, as if he didn't know whether he should approach her. She realized that he probably didn't want to hurt her, so he tried to stay put, keeping his distance. In the end, she suggested that he leave these flowers here to go further away, and he could take them with him. Svetlana is already worried that the boy might attack her, but Molly doesn't think so. She feels absolutely safe. After waiting for them to leave, he approached the bouquet and immediately knew that he would not take it with him. The guy took off his glove, and now he has two options. Either throw these flowers somewhere or just do something with them. He started tearing off the petals and scattering them in the wind, so that later Molly would come here and see that he was not interested. He did it with such an indifferent look, as if he did not believe that someone was capable of doing good deeds for him or caring about him. Meanwhile, Molly had already returned to the house. She was thinking all the way whether she had made a mistake, because maybe her grandfather knew what he had warned her about. Just as she was thinking about how dangerous it was to talk to the young lord, a wolfman appeared next to her, but she didn't notice it right away. The girl looked up, saw a terrifying silhouette, and screamed so loudly as if she was being attacked. Apparently, she had not yet come to terms with the fact that she lived in a house full of such. This wolf was even more scared of her than she was of him. From such a scream, he almost lost consciousness and surprisingly did not even fall. He was somehow not used to being scared. As a result, he was worse off than her. But even in this state, he found the strength to explain that he actually appeared in front of her, not because he was going to scare her. After this, she asked him who he was and why he continued to hide his face, to which he replied that he was the commander of the Silver Knightly Order. His name was Golf, and he also covered his face because he saw how the lady was scared of him. It sounded so sweet that she even felt guilty, because she would be very upset if someone was scared at the sight of her. After this, the wolf asked that since they had already met, would he then be able to calmly appear in front of her without worrying that she would be afraid of him? She replied that she thought it would never happen again, and he was so happy as if something very good had happened. Then Molly asked him what he was doing there, and he replied that he was just seeing a guest off, but he suddenly decided to stay, to spend a little more time with Lady Sylvia, and Molly already finds it suspicious. And then she realizes that this is the same person, the prince's puppet, Weston, with whom it is better not to talk at all, neither to her nor to Sylvia. This man convinces the girl that his master is looking for her and that he swears eternal love to her if she appears before him. Also that he will definitely devote his whole life to her, will look only at her, and will love her more than himself. Molly decided that before this man did something stupid, he needed to be separated from Sylvia right away. Otherwise, there would be trouble. She immediately asked the wolf to pick her up and carry her to the side, where her friend and that vague guest were now. Of course, he immediately agreed, because this way he could fix that situation, and he also really likes to be useful to someone. He asked her to hold on tight because the movement would be very fast, like teleportation, and it was so high that it was a whole adventure for her, so she will definitely ask her to ride like that again sometime later. Meanwhile, she tells this man that she has nothing to talk about with him, and he claims that perhaps she will change her mind if she listens to him again. He started by saying that she had never made her debut in high society, hinting that if she wanted, he could help her with this. He says that she can only give where her house is. He will send an invitation to the banquet in honor of the birthday of His Highness the Prince. She began to explain to him that she was not a lady of some outstanding family. This is the pure truth because I treated her like a servant. Even if he sends an invitation, they won't be happy about it. To which he said that it's probably because she's an illegitimate child or adopted, and that in any case it doesn't matter, because with such an appearance she can easily become a lover, if not a wife of the prince. The answer to this was, "You are too tactless, please leave, otherwise you will be helped." And then he starts grabbing her hand and asking if she wants to be a legal wife or not, as if he thinks that this is her only goal in life, and that with this approach she will agree to everything. Sylvia orders him to let go of her hand or he will regret allowing himself too much. He seemed not to pay attention to these words, and since she did not want to be the prince's wife, he offered himself as a candidate. Supposedly the status of vice-countess would also suit her. He had just said those words when Molly immediately hit him on the head with a hammer to make someone give up their place. The girl knew it was a sacred hammer. Dad asked her not to hit people with it, but the Viscount is not a person, so he can be hit. After that, the first thing she did was run up to her friend to see if she was okay. Although Sylvia was worried about her just as much because she saw how high she had to fly to make such a maneuver. She didn't expect this from her, but it was very nice. Who else could have protected her so effectively? Says that Molly is just in time. That guy just started to cross all the boundaries and immediately got what he deserved. Meanwhile, the Duke came at the wrong time. He heard the noise and decided to find out what was going on here. Although Molly was very happy that Grandpa showed up, if everything works out, then taking advantage of the opportunity, she will be able to drive away Mr. Weston completely. Some time passed while this man was unconscious. They had already managed to tie him up hands and feet so that when he woke up, he wouldn't run away anywhere. Opening his eyes, he saw the Duke in front of him. He was very scared, but still dared to ask where it was seen. That a guest who came to check the contract was arrested, he perceives this as complete disrespect. To which the man replied that he had heard that not only had he been shooting his eyes at his dear guest, but he had also dared to touch her, and that was just pure disrespect, especially since she had asked him not to do it. He began to make excuses that his lordship had misunderstood everything. Then he said that he had never seen her before, so he wanted to send her an invitation. It seemed to him that if she joined the banquet in honor of His Majesty's birthday, it would be a good chance for her. The Duke tells him that Molly tells him something quite different and that he is more inclined to believe her than the dubious guest. And he also said that not only did the guy show disrespect to his guest, but I also stole an expensive thing from Valkyrie. This man dared to ask if they had any evidence because otherwise he refuses to even talk about it. The Duke's assistant replied that this magical clap was the proof, and Molly said that she saw with her own eyes what fell out of his pocket. The guy started thinking to himself that he had definitely put it in the magic pocket and didn't understand how it could have disappeared from there. Magic cotton. If you look at it from a distance, it looks like a living creature, but its essence is a clot of magic. If a person without power absorbs it, he will be able to use magic, so it is a very rare commodity. In a past life, Molly was puzzled how the prince, a rank and a party animal, could learn the basics of magic. But as it turns out, he didn't even have to study. Meanwhile, the Duke says that he found some magic in his pocket, which grows only in a small number of estates. And since it is not in their estates, so he could not have taken it with him from the very beginning. It is obvious that he found it somewhere here. The man didn't waste everyone's time. He just decided to order his assistants to deal with him according to the rules. According to the third article of the 23rd paragraph of the Valkyrie Charter, the visitor must study the prohibited list of things to take out in advance. Once the guy is found taking things out, he is prohibited from entering the Valkyrie for 3 years, and in the event of repeated detection, he is permanently prohibited from entering the estate. In fact, the guy relaxed because at first he was intimidated by some punishments, but in reality, these people simply will not allow him to appear here. But the Duke's assistant forgot one more point. So while the guest was happy that he got off easy, he read out that whoever took out an item that was listed as rare and protected would be kicked out after cutting off something. And then he became so tense that he began to beg with a trembling voice to give him a second chance. He was ready to do everything so that they would just let him go. And he also said that he was just following the order of His Highness the Prince. He would like the master to consider his punishment, so he asked for a chance to contact him. But everyone around him thinks there is no need for this, because it turns out that this man is lying, and his master didn't actually give him any such instructions, and he'll be in touch in a second and tell him everything he thinks. All this time he heard this whole conversation. So he has a couple of questions for his subordinates. The gentleman asks how the guy dared to steal without his permission, and the guy looks at him as if they had recently agreed on this, and now he says such things as if nothing happened. He recalled his own words about wanting to use magic, to which the prince replied, "Could the assistant really think that he would want the stolen things?" The assistant asks if the gentleman didn't like all the things he brought him before, to which the prince is surprised. Does the guy really want to say that every single one of them was stolen, and that among those things there was nothing that was brought in without being stolen? Meanwhile, the prince turns to the Duke. He admits that his subordinate was uncultured and asks for forgiveness for everything that happened because he was unable to control it in advance. So he allowed to deal with him according to the rules of the Valkyries, and as soon as the guy heard this, he realized that he was finished. The prince also asked the Duke to make sure that he would never have the courage to repeat something like this again. The man replied that that's exactly what they would do. He was very glad that everything had been clarified, and at that moment Molly thinks about how well he lies with such a serious face, silently admitting and knowing that all these jewels were stolen. And yet, she eliminated Weston, so she will no longer have to deal with him and the prince, which is important. Meanwhile, although she was a little concerned about the prince's last words, the girl still stopped her friend's meeting with him. She was afraid of trouble when the Duke said he would contact the prince. But Sylvia said very timely that she would go to her room, thanks to which they were able to calmly oppress Mr. Weston. And she somehow didn't think that Viscount Weston would decide to come immediately after hearing the news. She thought that later, she would have to go secretly to see how he would be punished. Meanwhile, she thinks it's time to take a rest with Sylvia, so she comes to her room with a smile to suggest this wonderful idea. My friend opened the door, but she was so upset that you could tell without even looking closely, and that was very strange. Molly hadn't seen her like that for a long time. The girl can't imagine what could have happened that such a bright, kind and sweet person would be upset about something. Molly asks what happened because there can only be one reason for it, Mr. Weston, who could have hurt her when the girl didn't see it. The girl replied that this was not the case, and then asked why she was not allowed to be there when they contacted His Highness the Prince. She has only two explanations for this. Either she could just be in the way, or there is something she shouldn't know. At this moment, Molly is thinking about what to do, because it seems that she hurt Sylvia's feelings and she is horrified only by her imagination. If the friend was in that place, she would definitely run into the prince, and if they fell in love at first sight, it would be very bad. It would be nice if her friend never knew about her unhappy past life. Of course, Molly doesn't want to keep secrets from her friend or upset her, but she would like Sylvia not to be limited by her past life and to enter anew her own path. So first, the girl apologized to her, and after that she started saying that Weston had said bad things to her, so she thought that it would be hard for her to be around him. And she never told her the truth, but only for her own good. And then Sylvia asks a very strange question. She wants to know why Molly likes her so much, because she thinks that she has no right to such excessive love. Molly was very surprised. She asked what her friend was asking, because if it weren't for her, then who knows what would have happened to her now. The girl always believed and will believe that Sylvia is a person worthy of love, and she also thinks that she does too little for her, because she could do more. And also Sylvia is the only one who taught her love, so in return she wants to give her even more, 1,000 times. She began to remember how she was originally a very ordinary field mouse, and her friend became the only one who paid attention to her and truly loved her just like that. And she is also a little upset that while Sylvia was protecting her, she did not have time to take care of herself. So she wants to protect Sylvia now that she finally has the strength and opportunity. The friend smiled and then said that if that was the case, then Molly could stop worrying about it. The girl asked what she meant, because it sounded a bit confusing at the moment, and she didn't quite understand what it meant. Sylvia replied that until now, she had lived in the Bluewood mansion and had endured everything not at all because of stupidity, kindness, or great endurance. There was nothing she wanted in that mansion. No matter what she did there, life didn't improve, so she agreed to the role assigned to her. But now that her life has changed beyond recognition, she has the strength to protect herself and those she loves. Therefore, she no longer counts on outside help, and she also doesn't want to see her friend endangered because of her. Responded to this that it seemed like she was trying to do the impossible out of a desire to protect her. But now she won't do that anymore. Sylvia said that it was okay because she understood her feelings perfectly, and it would be good if next time something like that happened, and they shared it together. Molly is very glad that they talked about it. She is completely satisfied. And then she thought to herself that from now on, she also needs to focus on the current Sylvia, because she must protect her not in the past, but in the present. The next day had already arrived. Molly immediately came to the Duke. For some reason, she wanted to see him. He is discussing with his assistant the contract with Viscount Weston, which was broken, in the assistant's opinion. This is obvious theft, so they will not be able to cause problems. And they say that today, Mr. Weston was deprived of the title of heir. And this is wonderful news that cannot but please. It's a pity, but Mr. Weston didn't get what he was promised because Viscount Weston came in one breath and apologized for his son's theft. It seemed that in his heart he wanted a commercial agreement, but the Duke, of course, did not accept it on the grounds that one could not trust the intentions of a Viscount who sent a man like his son as a representative. The Viscount, who had exchanged his son's punishment for the chance of a long-term contract, became very angry, and as a result, Mr. Weston was stripped of his title and sent to a monastery. Molly thought that was the end of it, but she doesn't quite understand what these little creatures are doing here. The assistant suggested that they seemed to recognize the blood of the Ratson family, but the girl did not quite understand how these things could be connected. He replied that it was because the blood of the Ratson family contained the energy of Venus, the god of Animanolia, and it was easy for them to maintain their true form near her, which is why they stuck to her hands. Although they are not living beings, but there is an instinct left in them that wants to receive the attention of God. To which the girl replied that they are not werewolves, but follow Ratson. How surprising. The guy thinks that they are not werewolves, that's why they stopped at this. And after that, he said that he thinks that now he is absolutely rational. Only now, when the lady arrived in Valkyrie, he began to feel how this rationality became powerless. The girl didn't quite understand how to understand this because the phrase sounded somehow ambiguous. Meanwhile, the Duke decided to change the subject. He asked what was going on with that matter that they had never finished. The assistant replied that His Highness the Prince said that as an apology, he would personally come here. And immediately after these words, Molly reacted as if this happened, something terrible would happen, something that she feared most of all. She started to behave very strangely because she was so nervous that she could no longer control her behavior. She told them that as soon as he saw the prince in front of him, he would definitely hit him with the sacred hammer. And for the Duke, this sounded a little funny. And then she thought that maybe she couldn't just mindlessly swing a hammer at the prince. You never know how it would turn out. Then she wondered if she really had only one way and decided to gather some reinforcements, just in case. Grandpa or Edmund won't do, they have a high status. So at the slightest thing, the problem can become bigger. The prince's actions should not be a subject of controversy. We need people who can slightly scare him and drive him away. And then she had an idea. And for this, she asked her grandfather for one request and began to hope that he would not refuse. She urgently needs to go see the knightly order. And without him, they won't let her in, especially since she needs his permission for this. Meanwhile, Molly is already in the arms of a familiar wolf. She roughly told him her plan and asked to gather everyone else to tell them about this matter. If everyone agrees and is not against it, we can assume that everything will definitely work out. After all, They are the best in their field, and anyone will be afraid of them. As soon as the knights saw Molly here, they immediately had a question about why she was here, because they were not allowed to get close to her, and no one wants to make a child cry. Their leader ordered them to stop talking and explained that the lady wanted to make a statement, so they should listen to her carefully. And so she started by saying that she was going to create a team and assign them a secret mission, if of course. So it would be nice if they all took part in it. The prince said that, as an apology, he will soon come to Valkyrie. However, the prince's goal is not an apology but to find the one who disgraced him. Of course, you can ask the girl to drive him away before he does something stupid, but at the slightest thing a conflict can arise between the kingdom and the empire, things can take a bad turn. And if the prince runs into a series, then there will be trouble. Before this, it is necessary to frighten and drive away the prince. A group is needed that can instill fear in him, and for this task no one is better suited than the knightly order. As soon as the knights heard that they were being offered to participate in a secret mission, everyone immediately started raising their hands because there hadn't been anything so interesting for a long time and everyone wanted to try themselves in something new. Everyone started making noise and offering their candidacy. The commander asked them to keep quiet because there was another important point that the girl had not mentioned. The number of personnel is limited to 5 wolves, since this is a secret mission and there is no need to be conspicuous. Molly also warned that in this case it is not so important to be strong as to be an actor. And then everyone started saying that they are experts in this, as if they do this every day. Meanwhile, they were joined by the second commander of the knightly order, a leopard, with whom the wolf is not very good friends. They are constantly competing to see who is already coping with their job, and who should have been fired or demoted to the rank of an ordinary knight a long time ago. The guy started telling him that the lady hadn't called him and asked him not to disturb the meeting, that is, to disappear somewhere. To which the leopard replied that all this was because people did not know about him. Moreover, it was she who gave people a chance, and not his colleague, so he would listen only to her. He asked her directly if she would give him the right to participate in this matter and promised to try his best. And in the meantime, as if from nowhere, the so-called leopard princesses appeared. This is his famous team, with whom he wants to participate in this matter. So a very serious conflict began. Everyone wants to show themselves from the best side, and Molly's offer will give them such an opportunity. But since she doesn't need many people, they started shouting over each other. When suddenly, Molly says that she thinks it would be better to do this business together with the wolves. At least they are not noisy. All the wolves were immediately happy. They were very happy that the girl chose them, and immediately after that, they began to drive away these, as they call them. A few days later, the guy is calmly going about his business and doesn't even realize that a guest has arrived. They are, of course, waiting for him, but no one thought that he would arrive so quickly. The guy, as if nothing had happened, as if he was at home, comes into the office and says how long they haven't seen each other. This is the same prince of the kingdom of Sylvia, whom Molly is afraid to see next to Sylvia. The duke's grandson was not at a loss. He asked what business the prince was here for, because if it was about the past, then it seemed to him that it was already over and there was no point in even discussing it. To which the prince replied that he had come because he thought it would be better to apologize in person and at the same time look at the face of his childhood friend. Only the person he was talking to now had never had any childhood friend. The guy always felt it, but he's an annoying person. Too much attention for someone he'd only seen briefly as a child. In the end, he just said that if that's all the prince wanted to discuss with him, then he'd probably go about his business. Suddenly, the guest asks, who is the girl that his subordinate caused problems to some time ago? Since it is his servant's fault, oh how the master must bear responsibility and wants to be understood. The guy answered him that everything was resolved according to the laws of the Valkyrie, so there was no need to pay attention to it for some time. The prince immediately understood that if he said that, it meant he was covering for her. He had heard various rumors that a beautiful girl had stopped at the Valkyrie, who would steal anyone's gaze as soon as she ran into her. The guest already thought that the guy fell in love with her at first sight and therefore is trying to protect her from others who want her attention. And even if it is not so, it does not matter, because he became even more curious. They are trying to hide it from him, so he insisted on apologizing to her personally and getting this meeting. In the end, they agreed that if the guy answered one question from the prince, he would immediately back down, so naturally he agreed. The prince started by saying that his servant was going to steal the magic cotton, and he wondered how carefully they hid it, because he never thought that it could be somewhere here, To which the guy asked if this was really a question about why it was not put on the market, to which he replied that if something so valuable was released, it would lose its rarity. He just wanted to ask why they did not use it. The guy replied that he simply had no reason for it, and if he had any, then of course he would definitely take advantage of it. And then the prince continued that the grandson who inherited the Duke of Valkyrie's talent in its original form and the swordsmanship skill that exceeded the normal range, if he used the magic cotton and learned magic, his value would greatly increase. And wherever he goes, everyone around him will respect and praise him, to which the guy replied that he does not know and thinks that there is no need to desire a power that does not originally belong to him. The principal asks why the property of the Valkyries and the magic cotton is not his thing, to which he replied that for someone these are desirable abilities, and if he learns them without any effort and respect, then it will be tactless. He is already lucky to be born an aristocrat and enjoy many things, so he does not want to get into the habit of being someone else's lot and steal someone else's chance. The prince still believes that if he had mastered basic magic, he could have gotten a chance to save the previous duke. But at this point, the guy doesn't want to hear anything like that anymore. He made it clear that either they were changing the subject now, or this conversation was ending right now, and they were going to go about their business. And then the guest starts apologizing. He pretended to admit that he crossed the line, although he is not the kind of person who can say this sincerely. In the end, he realized that they would never be able to get along, so he suddenly decided to leave and at the end even wished them all the best. The guy suggested calling a person who would show him around, to which the prince replied that it was not necessary and asked to say hello to the dukes. Even though he had already left, the guy still assured that he would not retreat so easily, and began to think about what the prince had already planned. He still has hope that this man will not behave as he pleases in Valkyrien. Maybe he has at least a little conscience, although it is very unlikely. And in the meantime, he is already standing near some window, as if he is waiting for a certain person. It doesn't look like he is going to leave here. One of the maids noticed him by chance, asked why he was beating the escort, and asked how she could help. He answered her that, in fact, he was secretly looking for someone, and it would be nice if she helped him with this. The guy said that he heard that his assistant had caused some inconvenience to some girl, so he would like to personally apologize to her, but he can't find her here. The girl tells him that unfortunately she can't just go and figure out her location. That wouldn't be quite right, to which he says that everything will be fine, because he's going to leave as soon as he apologizes. Then he began to think why she was placed in the Western Palace and not in the main one, because this is a place where strangers can come and go as they please. He became even more curious about what kind of girl this was that was forced to resort to such tricks. And also, his plan to get the magic cotton had failed, and he was furious. Now he had no choice but to use this chance to seduce her and anger Edmund. At that very second, this magical clap appears in front of him. He had never seen it before, but now watching it live turned out to be a very interesting sight. After that, he thought that a person like Edmund, with such an outstanding talent, even if he died and was resurrected, would not understand that such power cannot be obtained simply by desperately desiring it. The prince believes that only those born for greatness can bring prosperity to the world. He has always seen himself as the future ruler of the entire kingdom of Sylvia, which means that this power, as it seems to him, should belong to him. At some point, Molly appeared in the corridor. She was just looking for the magic cotton, but she didn't think that she would meet this person here. The main thing for her now is not to lose consciousness from surprise. The first thing she thought about was, did he really search the entire mansion looking for Sylvia? It was a good thing she had placed the knights in the side palace in advance, so for now, everything was going according to plan. Since everything was under control, she answered him with a smile that her name was Molly, and he was surprised that the child was not afraid of him, as if he knew that he would arrive soon. Then he remembered hearing that they had brought a missing child from the family of the high priest. He thought it might be her, but the name didn't match, which meant he was wrong. After that, I thought that it meant there was no need to stand on ceremony with her. I started to take these balls into my hand and asked why the child needed them at all. Then he said that he thought she was just a child, but she turned out to be much smarter than she looked, and this was an unexpected obstacle for him. And here, the most interesting part begins. The thing is that if he manages to absorb the magical cotton before the child brings help, he will achieve his goal. Only he is confused that the girl does not react in any way, as if she knows something. The guy started to worry because the cotton should have crumbled and been absorbed, but nothing like that happened. At this moment, she calmly stands in front of him and thinks that he can try even 1,000 times. He will still not succeed. She is absolutely sure of this, so she does not even intend to distract him. Thanks to the divine energy, the magical cotton has acquired a new form. A person of his level will never be able to absorb it no matter how hard he tries. It is impossible. And then she starts teasing him, and he asks how she dares to do this, although he doesn't even suspect that she dares. She answered him that he probably imagined it, although she herself does everything to make him even more angry. And then he starts saying that she doesn't seem to understand who she's talking to, and that she's only hurting herself by being stubborn, and he also promised that she won't get away with it so easily. Then he said he didn't know what trick she had pulled, but advised her to immediately return what she had taken. And then they appear, a huge team that came at the right time, as if they felt that the right moment had come. Now the guy understood why the girl was acting so confidently, but he couldn't be so brave with them anymore.